Alright, hello, and welcome to another ranking video. I love cartoons, I love video games, and you best be sure I bloody love a good cup. I mean, who doesn't? So I decided to rank all the bosses in Cuphead. That's right, all 19 of the most rage-inducing, beautifully designed, and creative bosses you'll ever see. This game is basically one big boss rush after all. Remember, these are my own personal opinions, based on the creativity of the design, the music, and the difficulty level. Remember, it's okay to disagree, or by some chance even agree with my choices, on the internet of all places, where nobody agrees. Let me know your favourites or least favourites in the comments. But that's enough said. Here we go. It's time to start the ranking at number 19.
A great plan and then some. Here goes.
Someone had to be bottom, and for me, it's Goopy Legrand, one of the earliest bosses in the game. His design isn't really that interesting. He is basically just a great big blue ball, and nobody likes having blue balls. A pretty basic fight, as you'd expect, is one of the first in the game. I do like how there is 3 clear phases though, each one getting slightly more hectic. Just unfortunate this game has so many great bosses. I do tend to forget about this silly space hopper.
Here's a real high-class bout. And begin!
Very low in this list is Sally's stage play in Dramatic Fanatic. For me personally, I felt this boss was just a bit too easy, especially since it's right at the end of the game. It doesn't really add much new in terms of creativity, and for me it's just a bit boring. There isn't really a part of the boss that I really look back and go, oh wow, that was cool, or that's great design. It doesn't really help I tend to fall asleep during plays. And this boss sends me right into a snooze.
Here's a real high-class bout. And begin!
In at 17 is the not so great The Jimmy, the first flying boss on this ranking. I'm not the biggest fan of the music for this level, and his laugh is enough to send me insane. There's a lot going on screen in some phases, and sometimes it feels a little bit too cluttered. The worst phase though is phase number 2, as it slows down the pacing just a little bit too much. Overall he isn't too hard, but then I did tend to find the plane levels a little bit easier than others.
Here's a real high-class bout. Here goes!
This bee can buzz right off. That's right, it's Rumour Honeybottoms, an auto-scrolling level, so you have to keep moving constantly, which is okay on the most part, but there are times where you just can't avoid taking damage. Oddly, you don't even fight Honeybottom at the start of the boss, just a police bee. Oh, and some worker bees just in the background trying to make their own way home from work. Imagine if some cup started shooting you while you're on the train home after a busy day. I really did struggle with this boss though, maybe more than I should have done.
Good day for us. Well done. Now go!
In at 15 we have the Root Pack, potatoes, onions and carrots, the first boss in the game, and it's more of a tutorial, so obviously it is expected to be very easy, so I won't really count that against it. It does do a good job of teaching you the basics of the game, and does have some tough moments, especially phase 3 against a carrot, as you have to dodge all those little baby carrots flying across the screen. I can't rank it too high as it is a very basic boss, but I do really enjoy this one.
A brawl is surely brewing. And begin!
This dragon was the first boss I'd say I got stuck on for quite a long time. I guess I'm just not a fan of the screen scrolling while you fight a boss. I feel like there is less interesting visuals in this one than most of the other bosses. And the final phase is an absolute nightmare. It's also the only boss I felt the need to use Lobber, for which I otherwise never use that weapon because it's mostly useless.
A brawl is surely brewing. You're up.
In at 13 is Ribby and Croaks, the boxing frogs. I love the setting for the fight. You can see a crowd cheering, dancers dancing, and a waiter going back and forth with a cloche. Hopefully he will find the correct table eventually, otherwise someone's going to get a very cold lasagna. The fight is really creative and a very difficult one for aisle 1. Maybe after the fight, Frog's legs will also be on the menu.
A great slam and then some. Here goes.
She may appear sweet, but this Baroness loses her head far too easily when she's angry. My opinion on this boss can change depending on which of the minions appear. Basically, it's an okay fight, so long as that bloody waffle doesn't appear. I hate that waffle. I always preferred pancakes anyway. It's a really fun and unique fight with a great setting, and I love the design of the castle when it starts to chase you during the final phase. But it is enough to put you off sweets forever. Well, at least maybe for a few days.
A brawl is surely brewing. And begins.
Just missing out on the top 10 is Captain Briny Bird, who always reminds me of Bluto from the Popeye cartoons.
Instructor Bluto at your service, Olive.
Which is appropriate since it is set at sea. The fight itself is about the right level of difficulty for an aisle 3 boss. Not too hard and not too easy. A decent and fair challenge. Just watch out for the shark attack. It honestly gave me a huge jump scare when I first played it.
Good day for a swell battle. And begins.
Starting off the top 10 we have Wally Warbles. I love that name. Wally Warbles. Wally, shut up! Stop saying Wally Warbles. I feel like this is one of the most iconic Cuphead bosses. He was originally going to be an aisle 1 boss, which I do personally believe would have been a bit too early in the game, considering he is very difficult to beat. It has one of my favourite soundtracks. The fight is dynamic, fast and energetic. All the things I am not. However, I did find Phase 2 against his son to be the weakest section, as it does slow down the frenetic pace of the first phase.
This match will get red hot. And begins.
In at 9 is Beppy the Beppy the Clown. Set in a carnival against a maniac in a bumper car. You really need to have mastered the smoke dash for this boss. I always like the carnival setting. Reminds me of Candy Floss and rigged fairground games, where it's impossible to win the prizes. Fortunately though, Beppy is beatable. Although he doesn't clown around, I can see why people find this boss really difficult, but I actually found him not too bad.
Good day for a swell battle. And begins.
She may look pretty, but don't stare into her eyes. Otherwise you'll turn rock hard. In more ways than one. You always have to be on your toes, avoiding objects flying across the screen. My main issue with this boss is the Medusa stare, which I do feel like you don't get enough time to react to. Either that, or I have the reactions of a sloth, which wouldn't surprise me. This makes the final 2 sections really tough for me, so just don't lose your head while fighting her, and you'll be okay.
Here's a real high-class belt. Now go.
Oh, a sweet little flower. Wrong! This flower is a menace. Usually flowers only attack during hay fever season.
But this one will attack you all year round.
Again, one of the most memorable soundtracks in the game. A really tough boss for aisle 1 though. This is the part of the game where people realise it gets serious. There is Gatling gun attacks, flying acorns, and Cagney can even extend his face right across the screen to give you nightmares. This flower is a fan favourite for a reason.
This match will get red hot. Now go.
In at 6 is Hildeberg, the first plane fight in the game. She starts off as a unicycling blimp and eventually ends up as this. It's amazing just how much a boss can transform in a fight. It's just all action in this one. I tend to prefer to not fight Gemini out of the 3 constellations, so of course that's what kept coming up when I was recording the footage for this video. The final phase is maybe my favourite design from the entire game. She now takes up half the screen and turns into a clockwork moon. Also, there are UFOs, because why not?
A great slam and then stuff. It's on.
Wait. Put your pitchforks down, everybody. Remember, this is my list. I know, I'm sorry. I have my reasons for why the devil is at number 5. I can already hear the dislike button being clicked. I believe this boss is just a little bit overrated. It's still a great fight though, which is why it's in the top 5. It's certainly worthy of being the final boss in the game, with the level of difficulty, the different phases and variety you get. But it is ball-bustingly hard. I never want to fight the devil again.
Here's a real high-class bout. It's on.
The classic cat and mouse and cup fight. I loved watching Tom and Jerry growing up, which this boss takes a lot of inspiration from. Set inside a wall, decorated with war medals, so it shows Werner is up for a big battle. Not to be confused with the Werner that plays for Chelsea, although at least this Werner can actually hit the target. This boss never feels frustrating or unfair at any point. Each phase goes by really smoothly. It's just one of those that I always enjoy fighting again. Plus a great twist is revealed at the end, where it turns out the cat was just a machine controlled by Werner.
A great slam and then stuff. And begin.
Talking about machines, it's time to talk about Dr. Carl's robot, which will always remind me of The Iron Giant, which is such a great movie. I'd highly recommend it. A lot of people say this one is among the hardest fights in the entire game. At times it's just a bullet hell. So much to shoot and avoid, but I think it's one of the most epic boss fights because of that reason. I like how at the start there's 3 separate weak points, so you can destroy them in any order. Kinda reminds me a little bit of Engine in Crash Bandicoot Warped. Maybe with a mix of Dr. Robotnik? So many evil doctors in video games. Why do all the doctors turn evil?
This match will get red hot. Now go.
Now, you can tell this is my list because I'm putting Phantom Express at number 2, which might not be a popular choice, but it should be. This is the most fun boss. Although, those passengers don't look like they're enjoying it. They must be on a commute to Birmingham. It's a proper ghost train, as you trundle alongside on your little trolley. It has the best theming in the entire game. Great music that sets the atmosphere. Sure, it's not the hardest fight in the game, but it's a fair fight. I never feel frustrated, and I never felt it was too easy. Just the perfect difficulty for me. But now, it's time to reveal the number 1. Yes, in at number 1 is King Dice. Now I am including all the mini boss fights that make up the entire battle as one boss. It's so fun to try parry the dice at the exact right time to get the boss you'd prefer. Just be careful to not start over. This would have been my preferred final boss. I'd always make sure to avoid number 1 as well. That fight is horrible. You can also be really cheeky and hide behind King Dice's hands during the final phase. So there we go, that was my ranking for all the Cuphead bosses. But remember, this was my own personal ranking, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? Remember to be kind, as I spent a lot of time on this video. Feel free to leave me a like, it really does help me out. But for now, take care and leave me alone.